it's changing. Samsung's next Galaxy update is already here in beta. And One UI 8.5 might be the most visually controversial update we've seen in years. But before we jump in, quick question. Do you like Samsung borrowing design ideas from Apple, or should One UI stay completely original? Drop your take in the comments. I really want to see where you stand. Alright, let's get into it. Samsung has officially rolled out the One UI 8.5 beta, giving us an early look at what's coming next for Galaxy phones. And while most people expected performance tweaks and feature updates, what's actually grabbing attention is the design. Because One UI 8.5 quietly brings something unexpected, Apple-like liquid glass vibes to Android. Samsung hasn't made a big announcement about this. But once you start using the beta, the inspiration becomes hard to ignore. The update introduces multiple UI refinements, and overall, the influence from Apple's liquid glass redesign in iOS 26 is clearly visible. Now, Samsung hasn't gone fully transparent, and honestly, that's probably a good thing. Instead, the company has taken a more restrained approach, borrowing select visual ideas rather than copying everything outright. One of the first changes you'll notice appears inside the Settings app. Samsung has added a floating back button that sits above the interface instead of being locked into the top bar. This floating navigation style feels instantly familiar, because Apple has been using a similar approach in iOS for a while now. It's subtle, but once you notice it, you can't unsee it. And this floating design doesn't stop with settings. Several Samsung first-party apps now feature floating navigation bars with rounded edges. The design feels softer, lighter, and more layered than before. It's especially noticeable in apps like the Phone Dialer, where the layout closely resembles Apple's liquid glass elements. Same rounded shapes, same floating feel. Very similar first impression. Then there's the Gallery app. Samsung has added light transparency effects that introduce a sense of depth to the interface. These translucent layers don't overpower the UI, but they do strengthen the comparison with Apple's design direction. It feels more modern, more dynamic, and slightly more playful than previous One UI versions. Another app that's raising eyebrows is the calculator. In One UI 8.5, the buttons now feature a raised 3D-style pop effect. They look like they're floating above the background, giving the app a more tactile look. Once again, this closely mirrors Apple's recent design choices in iOS. Small detail, big reaction. Now, this is where opinions start to split. Some users are openly questioning Samsung's design direction with One UI 8.5. Critics argue that borrowing from Apple weakens Samsung's identity, especially at a time when Google's Material 3 expressive design has been praised for being bold, fresh, and original. For those users, Samsung leaning toward Apple-like visuals feels unnecessary. But on the flip side, not everyone sees this as a bad move. Samsung hasn't gone extreme with transparency or blur effects. There's no overwhelming glass look, no readability issues, and no drastic overhaul of the interface. Compared to Apple's early liquid glass experiments, Samsung's execution feels more controlled and more practical. For many users, that balance actually works. The interface feels cleaner, animations feel smoother, and the overall experience feels more polished without losing usability. Still, there's a clear risk here. Samsung has spent years building a strong visual identity with One UI. By experimenting with Apple-inspired elements, the company risks blurring that identity. Whether this evolution feels refreshing or unnecessary will come down to personal preference. Some users will love the added depth and softness. Others will wish Samsung stuck closer to its own design language. What's clear is this: Samsung is experimenting again. One UI 8.5 isn't just about features or bug fixes. It's about testing how far Samsung can push its visual style without losing what makes One UI feel like One UI. As for availability, One UI 8.5 is expected to roll out to Galaxy phones in 2026, likely after the Galaxy S26 series launch. Right now, the beta is live for the Galaxy S25 lineup, giving early users a chance to experience these changes firsthand. So here's the big question: Do you like Samsung's liquid glass-inspired direction, or do you think this is one trend Samsung shouldn't follow? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want all the latest One UI updates, Galaxy leaks, and early software coverage before anyone else, make sure you're subscribed. See you in the next one.